evening and welcome to the PMBC meeting for Wednesday, September 11th. I'm going to share the agenda here. Can you all see that?
Nope.
Nope.
Huh. How about that?
Yep.
You can see that? Okay.
Yep.
Let me enlarge that a little bit.
Steve, that was my share.
So we had the call to order. The warrant, we have two invoices tonight. Let me pull one of them up. We have King Street. My apologies for sending these out late. Thought I had sent them out yesterday. Share screen, share screen. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Okay, so this is for King Street. We've got Vertex Company for $13,395. We've got Classic Construction for $366,206.80. And we've got LLB Architects for $8,040. We have all the backup. It was recommended for approval by Vertex. Are there any questions or comments?
Make a motion, we accept the invoice for $387,641.80.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Bob?
Bob Romley, yes.
Mike?
Mike Scaduto, yes.
Bartlett?
Bartlett Harvey, yes.
Stacy?
Stacey Damaris, yes.
And Steve Moore, yes. So we'll get rid of that one. Brian, can you share the senior center one?
I can. Kirby, if you could allow me to share screen, I can do that. Or maybe Steve, if you're a host, if you go to the...
A little bit of a...
Oh, there we go. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
People see this?
It's sideways, Brian.
There we go.
Okay, so we have for the senior center, we have Vertex Company, $39,647.50. We've got what's the next one?
LLB.
LLB Architects for $17,878.16. Then we've got Commodore for $866,631.13. And then we have WSP for $2,175.75 for a total of $926,332.54. Any and it was recommended for approval by Vertex. Any questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Don't be bashful. There's a second.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, Bob?
Bob Romley, yes.
Stacy?
Stacey Damaris, yes.
Mike?
Mike Scaduto, yes.
Bartlett?
Bartlett Harvey, yes.
And Steve Moore, yes. Thanks very much. And we'll go back to the agenda. I think the next item is the meeting minutes. We had 4 weeks of minutes to approve. I sent those out yesterday. If anyone has any comments, otherwise I'll look for a motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes for 6/26/24, 7/10/24, 7/24/24, and 8/14/24.
Second that.
Okay, all in favor, Bob,
Bob Rumley, yes.
Stacy,
Stacy Maris, yes.
Mike,
Mike Skududo, yes.
and Bartlett.
Bartlett Harvey, yes.
And Steve Boyer, yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Next order of business is Shaker Lane School Feasibility Study. Stacy, do you want to give us an update?
Yes. You'll have to, I apologize. I'm just going to be looking at the presentation that we just had with the finance committee and the school committee, because I just want to make sure that I'm speaking correctly about everything. But just recently, I think it was 2 weeks ago. Let me just scan in here. 2 weeks ago, we met with the finance committee, school committee, and select board to present to them the three options that the Shaker Lane School Building Committee had voted on to approve to be pushed along to the MSBA. So essentially what we have to do is we had to look over, what did we look over? 6 different options that the OPM and designers had worked for. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That they had worked on. After going through a very lengthy analysis, we voted on the top 3 that we thought would be best for the town. And then we met with, like I said, select board, finance committee, and school committee to present not only the top 3 options, but also to give them an overview of all of the analysis of all of the options. So it was voted on that we were going to go forward to present with the MSBA option 2.1, and I'll just give you guys like a just very brief description of it. That's a renovation addition to Shaker Lane. So that's an option that we have to present to MSBA. We have to give them an option just for a renovation. The second option is option 3.1, which is a new Shaker Lane building in the upper field. So in the same location where the school is at. The school would stay where it's at while it's being built and then demoed once the new school was built. And then option 3.2 is new Shaker Lane building, but in the lower field. So that's where I believe the soccer fields are right now. So same thing, Shaker Lane would stay as is while they are making the new school. Then once the new school is ready to move in, then we would demo the old school. So before I move on, does anybody have any anything specific questions about that?
So just to clarify,
It's a-
we had a meeting we had the joint meeting, and then I think it was 2 days later, we had the school committee meeting to take the vote. So we had 2 meetings within a short period of time.
Yeah, and that was because we have been this whole summer on a very tight line with MSBA. We have to stay within their timeline. So we've done a lot of work over the summer, but it's been crunch time in August and September, which is why we really tried to loop in as many of the committees as we could. So our next steps right now are, I'm just going to look at our calendar. We're hoping to get the select board, finance committee, and school committee together again as this process moves along. I think that was a big learning point for all of us and the Shaker Lane Building Committee, that we need to have more communication between all of the boards. Like I said, this time it was a little tricky because we were on such a short timeline. So we are working towards getting everyone together again in October. Right now we are...
Isn't there a joint meeting next Wednesday for environmental?
I'm looking at the schedule right now. Let's see, 8:30, 9:18. Yeah, so we have a school building committee meeting on the 18th. I don't have the agenda yet for that. Is that the environmental one?
I think Mark was working on that with Diana today.
Okay. So yeah, that might be what's going on there. So basically our next steps are we are presenting these 3 options to the MSBA. They have, I believe, 3 weeks to review it and get back to us with any notes or anything that we need to follow up on. And then we start kind of digging deeper with doing more site analysis in the 3 different areas, tightening up what the costs are going to be for all the 3 different options. And then there's a million different steps ahead of us, but I think for right now, those are probably the most important. Did I miss anything?
Well, maybe, we're assuming everyone understands the, potential costs of the project.
Are we assuming that?
Maybe not.
I can go over it with you guys. I will warn you that they are very raw numbers. So
Right.
we do not expect that these are going to be the numbers that actually shake out. It was basically just comparing apples to apples amongst all of the different options, knowing that as we do more analysis, we'll get kind of a better picture of what the costs are going to be. But generally speaking, there wasn't, let me see what the kind of delta was on it.
It was about $108 million.
100, yeah, I'm just looking at it. Yep, 108 average between the three different options, which the MSBA reimburses us on, which is a lot, which was a big discussion that we had as well in our meetings. So it's very complex, as you all know, but I think that's kind of the general summary. But I can take any questions. I'm sure Steve and I can help with any questions.
Stacy, could you tell us what the square footages are that you're thinking about for these three different proposals?
Yep. So option 2.1 was the renovation addition to Shaker Lane. So that would be, the whole school would be 103,000 square feet. That's actually the estimated square footage for all of the options. So 103,000 square feet. And right now Shaker Lane is 62,000.
Okay, and that comes from a program that the school committee has come up with, that square footage?
Yes. So that comes from a pretty deep analysis that the administration, teachers, they have an entire education plan, and they have an entire outline for the space summary of what we need, of what the MSBA actually they actually have baselines for what we have to provide for the school district. And I believe the difference was we asked for an additional, I believe, 20,000 square feet more than what the MSBA guidelines were, which from what I understand was actually pretty low from other schools.
Yeah, it was low.
Testing.
But yeah, good synopsis.
Can I just add to that? Just a couple things for Bartlett. We're still looking the.
We can't hear you, Ryan.
Oh, okay. I'm off audio. Let's see here. I'll try to turn it up a little bit here. Let's see.
I finished my. I wish I could have.
Let's see. Is that any better?
Nope.
No.
Well-
Okay. All right. So still picking up. I'll try to just speak up a little bit. So just to add to what Stacy had said, the amount of square footage is still working on refining that. We're still in the early stages of that. But as I think what you're hinting at is the amount of square footage ties directly to what the cost is going to be. So, I think we're aware of that and looking at that. In terms of the meetings that Stacy had mentioned, we're meeting on October 16th and October 23rd at the police department. And that's going to be with the finance committee, select board, school committee, and Shaker Lane School Building Committee. Our objective is to get ready for special town meeting, which is on the 29th. And at that time, we're going to, the first 10 minutes of the special town meeting, we're going to give an update to all of town meeting where things currently stand with the project. So just to augment that.
Hey, thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.
Any other questions? Well, then we'll thank you, Stacy. We'll move on to the senior center, Brian.
Yep, thank you, Steve. Senior Center project's going very smoothly. We got an update. We were all on site this afternoon for our OAC meeting. The contractor is in the process of making the building weather tight. We've started the AVB fluid applied product that's being sprayed amongst the entire building. Windows are being installed, as well as trades have been mobilized inside the building, installing their systems, as well as interior partitions. Our site contractor will be mobilizing in the coming weeks for the infiltration system that will be in front of the building, as well as our mason being remobilized on site for some of the stone water table that we had spoken about in a previous meeting that's going around the perimeter of the building as well. Before things are going in, we're also doing the standalone mock-up that you can see on site, where things are being inspected by our architect and their consultants prior to doing the installation on the building itself. For milestones, we do have some blower tests coming in order to achieve code. We need to have a blower door test on the entirety of the building. That is scheduled for in 2 weeks. These are preliminary blower door tests so that when we are finalized with the building, we shouldn't see any hiccups with what that is. We're also coordinating with our testing agent for some window tests throughout the perimeter of the building, making sure that the windows are not leaking over their allotted tolerance for the installation. Yeah, besides that, the monthly report was distributed to you last week. We can go through it if anybody has any questions. We do have some pictures. We had a site walkthrough from the COA director today, who was very pleased with the progress. Happy to see where some of the rooms are starting to take shape. Brian did attend our meeting as well today. One of the items that was brought up is a potential walkthrough for some of the stakeholders that we have here in town as we start to firm up the inside of the building and systems are being installed. So the one caveat is we'd like to have the interior stair installed for safety purposes. So we're coordinating with that. We'll let the PMBC know if it's something that they would like to attend. I assume it would be after work hours, but early enough that we can still have the contractor there to kind of provide this tour and answer any questions that we may have. The coordination with Littleton Light has been great. The transformer has now been installed. The primary feeds have been installed to the pole, and we'll be working on permanent power for installation of permanent power into the building, probably within the next month to month and a half. We do know that part of this project is also our construction house that we're working in. We're going to be making sure that the connections for the septic and sewer system are tied into the house, as well as the appropriate driveway. We'll be working with our design team in order to have that, in order to turn it back over to the town in a condition that is the same, if not better, when we received it. We are currently about halfway through our spending from a construction standpoint. We'll be providing the town a new cash flow as we see it, as we have accelerated the schedule. We've made up a few weeks, and we're hoping to do even better within the next month as these trades are on site. Miscellaneous inspections from the town and from our testing agents is ongoing. And yeah, we've done a very good job as a project team getting our submittals, our procurement, all materials on site. The logistics have gone very well. So if there's anything people would like to see, I can also share some pictures of recent pictures. That's aside from the. Oh, I apologize. I shared the wrong screen. Some pictures of the most recent in your packet that you had from the previous month did not have any of these. This is the fluid applied air vapor barrier that's been installed. You can see the mason has also mobilized to begin some of the backing stone that's going around the perimeter for that the stone accent that goes around the perimeter of the building. You can also see the installation of the Colby windows, which has been flashed and trimmed, getting ready for our infiltration tests that we'll be doing with our third-party tester. To show some of the interior, like we said, some of the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing subs have mobilized on site. You can see some duct work here in one of the corridors, as well as our fire protection systems that are going in and associated electrical that gets pulled throughout. Happy to say that the site is a very safe site, very clean. We'll make sure that it's cleaned up towards the end of the day. And you can see some of the open plenums that we have here that we're getting our inspections done before we do our sheetrock up to the ceiling. So overall, we've been very happy with the project to date. And like I said, we're doing better than what our original schedule showed for right now. So knock on wood and hope for good weather. The plan is the current substantial completion date is the 11th of March, with the only remaining scope would be the top coat of asphalt, the springtime plantings, and some associated landscaping that would need to be done.
So Brian, conservatively, how much ahead of schedule are we? 3 weeks?
We're showing 3 weeks. I think informally, I think we're doing a little better than that.
Yeah. That's good news.
The other, just from a financial standpoint, we do not have any other change orders to present to the committee tonight. Steve, I do have the previous ones that have been vetted and approved from previous PMBC meetings for your signature, just so that we can bill against them once the work gets complete. But we have not had really any change order reviews to do in the past few weeks. There will be some that are coming, both ads and credits, that we're going through. But ultimately, we're in a very comfortable position with our contingency, as well as the contractor contingency with the allowances that they carried in their guaranteed maximum price.
So does that substantial completion date include all the FF&E?
It would, yes.
Okay.
So from the designer, through the contract with our designer, they own the procurement of the FF&E. We've gone through the package of all the furniture that's interior of the building. We've gone over with the staff and the director, picking out colors and layouts of the offices and the public spaces. We've got the lead times on it. So we're walking in the order now so that we're not subject to any escalation costs on the FF&E, but making sure that it is on site when we want it to be on site. We don't want it to be too early and we don't want it to be too late. So we're keeping an eye on that substantial completion date, getting better, but that also means we want to make sure that our furniture is in place as well.
Correct. Good update. Any questions, comments?
Brian, could you identify the place where Commodore wants to put its storage trailers? We talked
Yes.
about-
So one thing that was brought up to us today is there's some good news and some news that they're requesting of us right here. And the infiltration basin that is scheduled to be, if you remember at the library project, the infiltration of the building is in the parking lot. And the original design was to kind of piggyback off of that. And we were going to need to interrupt out in front of the library parking lot for a small amount of time in order to install these infiltration bays. We were able to kind of shift the design and make it and pull it closer to the building itself. Therefore, we won't have any impact to the library parking in front, and we won't have to move the construction fence. That being said, we do have two large storage trailers that are out in front, in between the senior center and the library, off to the side where the kitchen side is. The request came from Commodore for about a month and a half. They're requesting if they can relocate these large 40-foot trailers to the very end of our parking lot in order to open up some area to install the infiltration, but also for some additional material laydown that they're going to need. We have our roofer that's being mobilized, that has 4 trailer loads of material that needs to be done. Some insulation, HVAC, that's all going to need some storage in the coming months. So it's going to be a request. I'm having Commodore draw up a sketch, and the request is going to be, anywhere between 6 and 10 parking spots for about a month and a half, and they would fence it off with a gate to close it off from any in the public. But until I see the sketch, I will propose that to the town to see what their feeling is and make sure that their schedule doesn't have any large events that maybe we need to avoid.
Thanks.
Okay. When do you expect that request to come in?
It came in about 3 hours ago, and so I would think that the sketch is probably going to be by the end of the week. I think the request for this moving would be about mid-October, and Al on site said, we would probably have them back by December, is what he was saying. So
He's pretty reliable,
he's been great. He runs a tight ship.
Yeah. So I guess you'd submit that to Ryan?
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
Brian, when do you anticipate a sewer tie-in for the house?
So we have engaged with the designer to get their consultant out on board. I've asked for them within the next few weeks for them to come out and take an inventory of the existing piping that's in the house. We need to draw up a schematic. And while we have the plumber that's on board for the senior center, we need to engage with them in order to get a price. We don't want to be subject to any remobilization on them. So we do have a small allowance for that work. We'll be working with Littleton Water, who did relay to us that there should be a stub out in the street with the new sewer main, so that would make the connection easier. So that we should get this design going within the next week or so. And obviously, we prefer to do this not in the winter months. So we want to get this done because our substantial completion date is getting so much better. I'd rather not do it in the spring. So if we can get it done sooner rather than later, that's what we'd like to do.
Absolutely. How about the surveying?
Yep. So the surveying is also in our designer's court. They had done a lot of previous surveying on when we were doing the original study of this. They're going to review all of those. If they need an additional survey out there, they're going to take care of that, as well as help do the coordination that we're going to need to do with the planning board and the assessors. We did speak with Ryan as well. We engaged with town council when the time needed about establishing that property when it goes back to the town.
Mm-hmm.
So Brian, will this sewer tie-in, does that need to go in before the infiltration units, or is there no conflict there?
No conflict there. So this tie-in for 31 Shattuck, the residence, is actually on the main in Shattuck Street.
Okay.
Whereas the senior center tie-in is going to the manhole between the library and the senior center and going down that way. So there was some coordination about capacities, making sure that the flow limits were going to be fine. I believe we've gotten over that hurdle. Our contact at Littleton Water has left his position, and so we're working with the new person as well to make sure we're clear there.
Okay.
I just add to that too. I just want to add to that with the idea of trying to get the line in, because if the project's done in March, then the ground will still be frozen up. So that makes even more sense to have that taken care of now than later.
Absolutely. Good point. Any other comments, questions? We'll move over to Indian Hill, Brian.
Yeah, and I'm going to let Matt take this over. Just to give a quick precursor on how we're doing on Indian Hill. Construction's moving ahead. We have a lot of things opened up, and I appreciate everyone's time because we do have to go through a couple things here. We have, I think, 2 PMBC meetings ago, we were not ready to recommend any of the change orders. The last PMBC meeting was postponed. So we've got a month of work that was critical to the job when we started opening things out, doing some exploratory and actually getting an understanding of things that were changed, that were different than what was on the document. So Matt can give an update on where we've been for the past month. But then we also want to present to the committee a substantial amount of change orders that have come through and been vetted over the past month. That hopefully, it's not going to be indicative of our burn rate for the months going forward, but it's a little bit of a backlog that we've gone through with the design team and ourselves and the owner, making sure that, if these are wants that they're being recommended. So I'll kick it over to Matt.
Sure. Thanks, Brian. So as Brian said, we discovered a number of unforeseen conditions by way of demolition, which is at this point substantially complete, waiting on only items that are subject to current RFIs, where Classic is awaiting guidance from the design team on how to proceed. The project is currently on schedule. We are tracking for a substantial completion date in early March of 2025. That has not moved in any of the schedule updates that we have seen for Classic. So I guess commenting generally on the sequence of work, we're starting with the exterior, and we've been working to address any water management and rot issues on the exterior clapboard siding, and making any repairs in areas where either the clapboard siding or the sheathing could be replaced to enable the painter to complete their scope. We're going to be repainting the building, and I think the painter, Classic told us earlier today, the painter plans to mobilize next week. to begin that work. So the goal is before the cold weather, all the exterior work will be done, and we'll be moving to just interior work. So at the interior, we've been doing some partition construction. Electrical has mobilized and is beginning their rough-in work, and we're doing various carpentry, and we've been working with the design team to identify changes at the footing details that are going in at the lower level. Classic has prepared those footings. There are pictures if you'd like to see them. They're included in the monthly report, but they've prepared those new footings to go in and be poured. So as far as the QA/QC and observation, Classic is retaining Yankee testing to review both the rebar that's being installed as part of those footings and perform compressive strength tests on the concrete itself, just to make sure that meets the specs. We've had, I think we were talking about FF&E for the senior center a bit. As far as the FF&E selections, that's pretty far along. I think we're waiting for some final feedback from the school department, but I think we're pretty much there with that. So that portion of things is moving right along. We're coordinating a number of things relative to the security and the low voltage, ironing out some of the details of how that will be distributed throughout the building in close coordination with schools, with Parks and Rec, and with town IT, just to make sure that everyone's needs are met as we add and omit data as we're upgrading from Cat 5 to Cat 6. As far as the high-level schedule milestones, we remain on track. Looks like exterior completion is targeting late September. The other thing, I know we mentioned last month that we were coordinating relative to the skylights, and we have arrived at, we think, a solution where all of the upstairs offices are going to get natural light either via redistributed solar tubes or the addition of conventional skylights, and the cost of that will be offset, we anticipate, by a credit for the solar tubes that we're not using. I think we've arrived at a good solution there that folks seemed to be happy with. As far as, let's see, what else? Heavy on administrative work as well, just documenting some of the changes as we've uncovered conditions in Classic doing demo. I'll say that also we've been working on taking an inventory of some of those existing conditions. I know Eric has been working with the energy auditors as part of evaluating how to improve the overall light conditions at the interior. So we're trying to add as much natural light, but also upgrade existing fluorescent fixtures to LED to enhance the quality of that. I've also done a bunch of work on utilities, including investigative work at the septic system, as well as working on the fire protection. So I think that's the high level stuff. Anything else I should add to that, Brian? Summary?
No. Some of the things that we've uncovered and kind of as we've opened things up is kind of our need for an assessment on our HVAC system throughout the building. You know, the task from our designer and from the overall project was to kind of get this building up and running as it was, you know, when the town purchased it. We've identified some of the units, 4 in total, for heating and cooling that are going to be replaced. However, we do understand that there are several systems, and this building is made up of several systems that could be towards the end of their useful life. And so with help from Eric and facilities, having some assessment done on these systems and kind of prioritizing what the recommendations are. We're taking those recommendations. We're going to work with the engineer of record to understand, you know, what they could spec for something like this to possibly get a price on some of the replacement for this. And if it's something that the town should do for short money, or if it's something more of a global issue that from a total HVAC system in the building would have to be reassessed after. What's being done now is more or less to bring things back up to functionality on where we were, things that were decommissioned or had been locked out from the purchase. But that is currently ongoing right now. And big thanks to the facilities and the HVAC town contractors for the help prioritizing those.
Any questions? Steve, you're muted. I see you speaking.
You were talking about putting the skylights in now?
Yeah, so the project called for a single skylight to be replaced. And it also called for four solar tubes that was going to be in the main corridor on the second floor. When we explored up in the attic space and really did a deep dive on where the solar tube to track the route at which the solar tubes were going to go, we realized that there's actually multiple layers of the attic up there that's almost prohibiting to get a solar tube, or the actual results of a solar tube in that area was not going to really be feasible. So by omitting those, having our energy audit, hopefully upgrading the lighting that we have in that hallway, we repurposed another skylight into one of the offices, working with the school department, and then another office where we really didn't have any natural light. The thought was that there was an existing skylight there. It had been blocked over when there was a renovation to the facility years and years back, which created a valley in the roof. That valley in the roof, I believe, was creating leaks at that existing old skylight, and therefore they blocked it in and sheathed it over. So our plan is to create a solar tube which has a smaller footprint than the skylight, to create some natural light that can come in there, and that seemed to satisfy the staff while also, maintaining the budget with the offsets that we're doing. So we're doing everything we can from and exploring all other options to upgrade the lighting and the natural light that the school department has. Other thing that Matt alluded to on the security and access control, one of the items that we need to coordinate with is, we have two different departments in here with one security system. So we have two stairwells that lead up to the second floor as well as an elevator. So we've been working with the town's elevator contractor, Associated Elevator, making sure that we can coordinate with our security such that access to the second floor can be done via a security fob. Therefore, the first and basement floors can be accessed by the Parks and Rec, and school department would have different credentials in order to get up into their area, or closed after hours. So those are some of the things that we were talking about, just to elaborate what Matt was saying.
Ryan, I know
So, Brian,
Eric was working on the compressor pump or something for the fire alarm system. Did that ever get straightened away?
It did, and I think Eric was a real catalyst in getting this thing going. I know that we've tried some work with some of the town contractors to determine exactly what this issue was. We did have the fire protection subcontractor underneath our general contractor on site today to identify some of these leaks and to get this rectified. So as of 3 or 4 hours ago, they were on site identifying these, documenting them and fixing them. And then they also have some extra fire protection work that needs to be done, relocation of heads, and making sure that the system is complete. So I'm feeling pretty confident that leaks will be identified, and the compressor that was running continuously in order to maintain pressure in the system, we may be able to correct that overall for pretty short money.
Yeah, I would say I'm much more confident today after bringing in the new contractor that is not Siemens, who told us there was no leaks in the system. The new contractor came in today and found at least a dozen leaks in the system within 2.5 hours. So I think we should go with them.
sounds like a good idea. Hey, Brian, you noted that there are some HVAC units approaching end of useful life.
Yep.
I would assume that you guys are identifying which areas of the building each one of those services,
Sir?
and prioritizing them.
Correct.
Yep,
Okay.
Steven, so we're prioritizing one of the bigger units up in the attic that services the second floor and the main lobby. So that'll be that was one of the biggest issues identified by the HVAC contractor.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Yep.
Alicia, Pete, any questions, comments?
Nope. All set. You.
Okay.
Oh, thanks for the info.
I think with that said, if Matt's able to share his screen, he'd like to give a rundown of the changes that we're recommending so that we can get that in front of the committee. These are ones that we need to give Classic a thumbs up or thumbs down to keep work proceeding in the interior of the building. We want to make sure that that's moving on forward as quick as possible. So, like I said, the number here, I mean, this is one of the bigger PCO logs that we've presented to the PMBC. But these are numbers that we are recommending, or we are recommending a lower amount that Matt can allude to a little bit, and he can give the reasons why. And if we're recommending on something that is currently not fully reviewed, Matt will indicate what that is, and we would be coming back to the PMBC at the next meeting to let them know if the price, if we get a not to exceed number, if we did better on this price based upon the review that we're doing on what was received. So, thanks, Matt.
Sure, just making sure folks can see my screen before I start talking here. Okay, great, thanks. So ones that we are recommending for approval are highlighted in green, beginning with number 2, which was added demo at the basement column line. This was during the exploratory work. The structural engineer asked to do a little bit of additional demolition at the basement level to understand the structural condition before finalizing their recommendation for the larger footings, and to make sure that was going to meet spec from their end to sign off on that. So this is for some of the additional labor on the part of Classic's carpenters who conducted that demo. Move to item 4, which was the concrete flooring underlayment removal. This being a music school, some gypsum concrete was added on top of the existing floor underneath the carpet, which was discovered when the carpet was removed, and that was done for reasons of acoustical attenuation. That gypsum concrete has deteriorated and is actually not is poorly adhered to the substrate, and that material cracks and comes up fairly easily. One of the reasons that we're recommending this change is because that it creates a transition to a different level as one enters the rooms where this condition is present, and by removing it, we anticipate that we can avert or simplify rather the flooring installation, and possibly even avert any future change orders that may come from a differing condition in the field, because the floor will be the same elevation moving from a hallway into the rooms where this condition exists. Number 5 involves clearing out a basement room that is at the moment a storage area for the former use of the building. It contains what we think are stage props, building materials, other miscellaneous items. So this is an estimate for Classic's labor to clear that room out to enable them to construct the partitions for the game room area that is in the basement there. Basement beam box outs. During a previous renovation on the building, the timber framing at the basement level was reinforced with some steel members that have bolt heads that protrude out into the space. As part of finishing that space, Classic actually recommended to us that it would be a safer condition if we covered over or trimmed in those exposed beams so that those bolt heads were not protruding. So this was the work for some carpentry to make safe and actually improve that condition. You'll note here that the initial submitted amount and the amount that we're recommending for approval are different. Part of that was or part of the quote for that was a painting line item, which we reviewed and felt was higher than it needed to be. So we're recommending an amount that does the carpentry work, but postpones or omits that painting scope.
Matt, where are those bolts located?
They are at the lower level. There are some steel plates, which you may have seen along the length of the timber framing, and they are what is securing the steel brackets to the beams.
They're basically sisters for the wood. They're just steel plates that sister along the beam to stiffen it, but the bolt heads are sticking out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, additional exterior trim replacement. This is for additional areas that were determined to be in worse shape than we thought. And so this is for material and carpentry labor to correct those conditions. Doors 114B1 and B2 changes. This was a conversion of a double door from a pocket door to a double leaf. I think and Brian, I don't know if you want to jump in here and further explain what this adjustment was.
Yeah, we needed to change the functionality of the door, as the swing that was being shown on the drawings was after review with the staff that it was going to interfere with what we were doing. So this is going to end up being a more of a sliding door. This is the cost for some of the hardware and the anchoring that's going to need to take place for this type of door in that area.
Thank you. Sorry, I think I said it backwards. Yeah, it's going from going to a sliding door. New gutters and downspouts as part of the overall water management that I alluded to that created or led to some of the conditions of rot that we were replacing. We wanted to install new gutters and downspouts. After we took the old gutters off, the original scope calls for the gutters to be removed and then reinstalled. Classic said, these are in not the best shape. They're kind of bent. Would need to fix them before we can put them back up. For relatively short money, we can get new gutters here and put those on and actually simplify the reinstallation of those gutters on the building. And so that was the cost of new gutters and downspouts for the building to replace the old ones, which were not in as good shape as anticipated.
Yeah, and I can actually jump in a little bit too. The deal, the proposal from Classic is it's about double the cost here. So in talking with Classic, it's going to cost them just as much money to try to modify and pin back up the old gutters. So they approached us with splitting the cost of the material and getting a new system, which I think is going to be well worth it based upon the water damage that we had in certain areas, and putting up the old gutters and creating the same problem that we had before. This seems to be one that we want to recommend.
Are we looking at the option of any kind of gutter guards?
We did talk about that, but I think in this situation where we have a valley coming in with a massive volume of stormwater coming off a huge roof area, I think we just want to be able to accept as much water as we can and maybe even extend the gutter a little bit more to accept some overflow,
Yeah, the new gutters permit us to add a little bit of gutter to accommodate the flow at which at certain points overwhelms the existing gutters, which is one of the things that led to some of the deterioration in the siding beneath that condition on the west elevation of the building.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of future maintenance issues.
Yep.
It basically needs to accept as much water as possible because these two large roof sections come into one valley, and then there's only one strip of gutter to pick that up. So we might have to put a piece of flashing to kind of dam that water and deflect it into the gutter to get it down and away from the building.
Okay.
Okay. Item 11, replace deck at door EX06. There was an existing deck outside of what will be an egress door that was in very poor condition and was actually a safety issue. So we recommended that, or are recommending the Classic proceed with that change. Radon piping adjustments. So the building has a radon venting system, and as that the pipes for that come through the basement, there was a conflict with a proposed partition at the basement level, and so this is for the labor to make modifications to the routing of that pipe as it comes through the basement, so that we can actually hide it within a partition and make the space more usable. So this involved coring a new hole and then making the pipe adjustments so that could move up through the building as it currently does. Footing detail changes per SKS1. SKS1 is a structural sketch that was issued by Ruben Guaracino, who's the structural engineer on the project. And this was an adjustment to the footing detail where they have added an additional, they decreased the size of the rebar itself, but added an additional layer of rebar within the footing and increased the size of the footing. We're recommending this change as a not to exceed amount. We do think that based on some review comments from the engineers that this may be able to be decreased a little bit. We may be able to push back and get a better price on this, but this is the initial submitted price. We're recommending this be approved as a not to exceed based on that sketch from.
Yeah, no, I can elaborate a little on that one. When we exposed what was there currently was vertical granite that was being used as columns with our existing slab. So when the existing slab was dug up and understanding how far the granite went down, it was sitting on another piece of rock. And so that condition had not been able to be seen by our engineer. Once that was reviewed, the engineer modified their footing sketch, and we do have some very large, probably 8x8 squares by about 3.5 feet deep that is going to be poured for these footings up to the top of slab. In doing so, another rebar mat for strength was added. This was the cost that came in. It came in relatively recently, and we're still going back and forth about the cost and the material on what was owned previously. But this cost would not go any higher than this. We do acknowledge that there has been a change due to the condition we saw underneath the granite, but we think that this can be done a little bit better, that we would bring back.
Okay. Number 16 was electrical demo T&M. This is representing electrical demolition above and beyond what was called for in the documents that was performed on a time and materials basis. That's what the T&M abbreviation is. And that is verified. The time and materials are verified by our construction site manager, Doug Goddard. So verified the amount of the hours, and we're recommending that this additional labor here be approved. Item 19 is not something that we're recommending that we approve at this time. It's highlighted in yellow. We have the design team evaluating that further to see if there may be another alternative way to make the adjustments to the basement sanitary piping so that we can do as much of that scope as possible. But we saw that the number here and wanted to evaluate whether there may be a more economical way to achieve the same end.
Yeah, for that number, so it's in the children's room in the basement. Down in the back, we have a game room for where the kids are. Once things were demoed, all the existing ceilings and walls, it's shown that you can see the sanitary system that's up in the ceiling is very low, to the point it's around 6'8", 6'9" in certain areas. And we wanted to achieve a little bit more height in order to get our drop ceiling in those areas. This was the first number we received from the plumber. Obviously, we dove into it and understood that we're not going to be spending $36,000 to move a cast iron trap up 3 inches. So our request to the designer is to get creative with some of the softening that we have in those areas and the drop ceiling to achieve, you know, the maximum height that we can have. We know that it's low ceilings in the children's area. But this seems as this was an excessive price in order to gain the couple inches that we needed. So we're back to the drawing board. We're trying to get a better result in those areas.
Are you looking at different materials like no hub or PVC, or is that not allowed?
That's not allowed, the PVC, but we're what I suggested, and I won't pretend to be the plumbing engineer, but the size of the trap itself maybe could be modified or shallowed based on where that is. So there's a few areas that maybe we can do some spot changes rather than trying to change, you know, 100 linear feet of piping to lift it up a few inches. So.
All right. Item number 20, we reviewed and sent back to Classic to be revised. So that's why it's coded as 20 revision number 1, which is gas furnace number 3 with modulating valve. This is GF3 is the code on the plans for gas furnace number 3, which is called to be replaced in the drawings. This is an upgrade to that unit with a modulating valve, which will allow it to throttle up and down to operate more efficiently, but also, I believe, adds the dehumidification capability to the unit. So that's what this price here represents.
That's down in the basement, so the dehumidification is critical for that, I believe.
Yes.
We concur with that assessment, and that's one of the key reasons we're recommending approval on that unit. HVAC unit gas piping. This is for gas piping above and beyond what is called out in the HVAC scope in the drawings. So I think actually gas would be done by the plumber connecting to the HVAC unit itself.
I just wanted to note that was brought up in the meeting today is that since this building is in different pieces and different sections, that the line sets of the new HVAC equipment is also going to have it's going to add to the cost if some of the line sets have to be changed, because we cannot use the same line set for the of the old unit for a new unit. So if the line set is in a wall or in a tough spot, then that might add to some of the cost of the HVAC stuff. But
okay, then another item that is fairly recent, brought up today and reviewed, is the replacement of siding and trim at the west elevation. This is around the existing upstairs window and areas sort of tracing down the west elevation where there was a point of infiltration around the trim of the window, and it involves replacement of clapboard siding. We determined, I think, that the sheathing in the area was actually okay, but some of the clapboard siding is in a state of repair where it may not accept, or the paint that we're going to be using may not adhere to it. And so this is a recommendation not to exceed for that scope.
And I'll add one item to this. What we had done is we did an analysis of the exterior once we started pulling some of the clapboard siding off to see what the condition was of the sheathing and the substrate. Some of the areas were awful and in need of repair that had to be done. That's currently being tracked already and has been completed. We understood that there were areas that absolutely needed to be repaired and that they needed to be done. In our walkthrough after our meeting today, we identified this location on the west elevation that was iffy. We had a decent substrate, but the clapboard looked wavy. We had rust on some of the nailings, and we were having issues refastening it to the siding. We had Classic provide us a price for that work to get that done. For the size of the work that's being done here, we're recommending this cost because it is it's very reasonable compared to what needs to be done. This is about 10 to 20 feet up in the air. where clapboard would be removed, reinstalled for the painter to come in within the next couple weeks. So this came in just this afternoon. We wanted to get this in front of you to provide you the price.
Hey, Brian, I need to interrupt for a minute. I see we lost Stacy. The next item that comes up on the agenda, we're going to need a vote for. So if Bartlett or Mike have to leave,
Yeah.
or can you guys stay on for a couple of minutes?
I can stay on.
Mike?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, good, thanks.
We promise we won't do this long in future meetings. So
Good.
Just to clarify too, this section of clapboard is where the gutter issue and all the water infiltration should be corrected with the gutter replacement.
right.
That's the same valley in the corner area that I was talking about prior.
So this chews up a little more than half of our contingency, huh?
No, it chews up
1/3.
about a third. So we're recommending right now 72,375.40. Our overall contingency was the 218. That's for the construction. We do have other buckets that we're holding for soft cost contingencies for any amendments we need for design work if things come up to that. But yes, this will take about 35% of our contingency at this point, knowing that it is hopefully all of our exploratory and unknowns have now been identified. And it was one of the reasons why we did up our contingency when we went to town meeting. I think we bumped this up to about 10 to 15% that we had, which is a little larger than we have on other projects.
I guess I was confused by this 114,000.
Understood. Yeah, the 114 includes
Sorry, that's the initial amount submitted, and it's counting the 36,000 that we're not recommending.
Understood. Yeah, yeah. So it would be helpful. I don't see it here. Maybe it is to understand the total of changes that you're recommending.
Right
Yeah,
here
that
in
would be the
green,
bottom
72, 375.40.
Oh, you know what? I've got a pane open that. Okay, got it.
Brian, how come some of these things weren't recognized before we even started the project?
Good question. So I would say there's a few options, a few answers to that question. Some of which that analysis and drawings were done to be put out on the street. We had a very tight time frame with this, about 3 months. And some of it was that we did not do any really in-wall exploratory rip out things in order to get an understanding. There are some that we are pushing back a little bit, that, you know, what we've paid for from a feasibility and schematic design is something that we would have expected to see. But some of these we knew we were going to have some unforeseen conditions. I think the large drivers in this are the siding costs, the sub slab costs, as well as the $10,000 one, which had to do. I'm sorry, Matt. Which one is that one?
This one is the footing detail changes.
The
Matt,
footing
can you
details.
shrink that up a little bit? One of the things that I question is the deck that we're replacing there.
Yep.
Why didn't somebody see that before? It's small money, but still it's.
Yep. It's to be honest, I believe the deck could have stayed with a new exterior that's going to be freshly done with all new clapboards and repainted. This is more of a staff entrance on the side. I think that, you know, if it stayed, it would have been asked why it was staying. So I think this is going to be a much better product, putting something new that's not going to be subject to water just dumping on top of it for years and years.
Is that going to be a Trex type of material?
I don't believe so. I think they're going with PT for this, for the price that we've had. They're replacing mainly in kind, but like Matt and Eric had talked about with the water management that's going on above it, it's not going to be subject to direct waterfall off of the roof that's shedding.
Yeah, our belief is that the reason for the deteriorated PT was because of ice dams and water coming off of that valley and unmanaged water and probably ice dams that they tried to use some chemicals to melt.
Okay, any questions or further comments on this change order log? Are you looking for a vote tonight?
Yes.
Just by way of a quick comment, with the 218,000 original construction contingency, if we were to approve all of these items as shown, that leaves 145,600 and change in our contingency.
Yeah, but we don't know how many unforeseens that we still have.
Well, they're probably mostly identified by now.
That's our hope. As we start putting things back in, we've opened up what we've need to, and we've got a good handle on anything that was either buried in walls or underneath slabs.
I'll second that from a town perspective.
Everything that wasn't nailed down.
Technically, Eric's still got to learn. He can't second anything. He's not on the committee, but so he'll learn. But But I just echo what Eric said. We were both there today working with Brian and Matt, and we recommend these changes as well.
Look at them.
I don't second that. I just recommend it. I'm not an expert.
Is there a motion to approve the addition of $72,375.40?
Somebody's got something going.
Somebody got a TV on?
Shut off.
Mike.
Yeah, it's me. I motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor, Bob?
Bob Rumley, yes.
Mike?
Mike Scudetto, yeah.
Bartlett?
Bartlett Harvey, yes.
And Steve Moore, yes. Any other discussion on Indian Hill?
Thanks to everyone's time on that one.
Absolutely.
Next item is the police station. We've got a bit of an issue over there. We've got some water infiltration. We do have a price from the waterproofing company who worked on the building a couple of years ago to do some investigative work. I shared the proposal with the team earlier today. Let's see, share screen. Is that the proposal? Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's it.
So I talked to Mike about this earlier today. I had asked for a breakdown, labor, material, and equipment, which they gave me this morning. I'm a little uneasy with the 20% markup, but being that this is a small job, I talked to Mike, and we thought that, that might be acceptable because it's so small, and, at any rate, this work needs to be done in order to understand or identify if there is water infiltration through that protruding decorative concrete masonry band around the building that's getting in, that's allowing moisture to get inside the wall cavity and creating some problems within the building.
Steve, is this a not to exceed?
This is a not to exceed, yes. We do have some funds available. So I think this is something we need to do to understand what the problem is. Bob, and I and the chief, Ryan. Who else was with us when we met out there, Bob?
Just that, and then the two guys from the waterproofing company.
Yeah.
I think
So,
the deputy walked with us too.
the deputy, yeah. So at any rate, I'm recommending that we accept this proposal so Ryan can authorize this work to begin.
Steve, didn't the waterproofing company do all of this a couple years ago? They took some of that concrete or precast band out and looked behind it because there was a lot of leaking from the beginning on that building.
So they didn't take the band itself out. They did what was the design engineer asked them to do, and they took out sections of the brick and they replaced sections of the concrete block above the band, but they didn't take the band out itself.
Okay,
And that was not part of their scope.
right.
But
Okay.
walking around the building a couple of weeks ago, the band is all mold, covered in black mold now. And it's only been 2 years, and it's just it's exhibiting it looks as if it's absorbing a lot of moisture, and
Yeah.
some of that may be getting inside the building.
It just sounds like bad details originally.
I agree 100%. So at any rate, unfortunately, I think
Yeah.
we need to do this investigative work, and we're looking for approval by the committee to authorize Ryan to initiate this work.
I make a motion that we accept the contract for $9,340.44.
I'll second it.
Second.
Okay.
All right. So roll call vote, Bob.
Bob Rumley, yes.
Mike,
Mike Scaduto, yes.
Bartlett,
Bartlett, yes.
and Steve Moore, yes. So Ryan, can you take the next step? Perfect.
Will do.
So the next item is member input. Bob, anything?
I'm all set.
Bartlett,
No, I'm all set, thanks.
Mike?
I'm good, thank you.
I'm good as well. And the next meeting is to be determined because there may be another Shaker Lane Building Committee meeting that might conflict with our next meeting. So more to come on that. I'll let everyone know.
Motion to adjourn?
Second,
Okay, roll call vote, Bob.
Bob Rumley, yes.
Mike,
Mike Scaduto, yes.
Bartlett,
Bartlett Harvey, yes.
Steve Moore, yes. Thanks for your participation, and have a good evening.